Nice to be with all of you today. It's just beautiful here in South Florida as always, and my worldwide friends and community and alumni, welcome. Today we're going to talk to you a little bit about the latest science, which comes in by the boatload on cooked food versus raw. And it's been a very big struggle for the plant-based community to get to the stage where they realized that when you cook something or microwave something, you actually destroy all the nutrients and take away the medicines. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, and then we're going to have questions answered, as many as I can. So here we go. Harmful compounds find from high heat. Now you say, well, I only steam. Steaming is high heat. To make something look as limp as it is, believe me, you've killed it. It's gone. So an acrylamide, that's sort of the latest guy on the block. That's been around for about 40 years and was first rolled out by the very #1 medical school in Europe called Karolinska in Stockholm, Sweden. They do more research than anywhere else in Europe, including Oxford and Cambridge, et cetera. And they have a team of genius people there. And they said, when you cook a carbohydrate, now what is a carbohydrate? It's practically everything I used to eat other than animal-based foods. So it's potatoes, it's potato chips, it's pretzels, it's donuts, it's cake. All of those horrible things, when you heat them at a high temperature, and to make a cake, it's high temperature. To make a cooked potato, an hour it cooks in an oven, high heat, it becomes a carcinogen. Now, how many of you want cancer from eating potatoes? Well, I know some of the big doctors tell you how wonderful white potatoes are. God bless their souls. They just didn't keep up with 2025 science on this one. And what we've been talking about for 70 years now. We also know that is 7-fold elevation associated with higher cancer risk. It's not just cancer. How about 7 times? That's that many people. Put your fingers up. The common consistent consumption of acrylamides cause a lot of problems. I'm going to quote off the top of my head a study that was done over in Holland where they looked at 60,000 women, and they had double the amount of ovarian endometrial cancer when they ate just little bags of chips. Here in the United States, we go to Costco and we have 2 people carry out the chip bag. The family size, which one person eats, by the way. Each member of the family is what they mean gets one of those bags. And over there, they have little baby chips, and they said, these 60,000 intelligent women who are just eating chips in Holland, they had double the amount of endometrial and ovarian cancer. You don't want that, people. You really don't. We also know a lot of other things are going on in the world today, like advanced glycation. Now, this is not a newbie, but it's the hit parade has brought it back again. This is like an old remake of a song. And this song was actually written by a French guy called Maillard in 1923. Holy macaroni. I wasn't even alive in 1923. And what he said, when you heat up sugars, which are, by the way, carbohydrates, and you mix them with proteins, you have big problems. It creates AGE correlation with 24% greater likelihood of metabolic syndrome. Metabolic syndrome, you're fat, you're out of control, you lay around all day long, and you watch sports on TV and say you're into sports. That's not being into sports. That's being into watching other people do sports. Now, this is a big one. PAHs. Oh, my God. Of all places, the Cleveland Clinic came up with this originally. And what they found, this is a reference from about a year and a half ago, they found that meats having PAHs consume chard, which I used to love. Make it chard, on the side, make it crisp on the side, rare in the middle, crisp on the side. You're going to have cancer and colorectal cancer, which is the fastest growing cancer in the history of cancer science, but not for old folk, but for young folk. Why? Because young folk today at 20, 30, 40 years old have chronically eaten nothing but junk food, bad food, fast food their entire life. So now these poor young people are hitting a cancer that modern medicine pretty much utterly fails with. Stage 4, they have little to none, probably none, to be honest, long-term survival rates. So you want to give up that meat, and you say, well, how about if I don't chard it? Well, then you get a little bit less cancer, but you're still going to get cancer. And, my old favorite, salami, bologna, pastrami, they're really good at it. They're already charred, right, to go in and create the cancer right away. Now, the impact on DNA, and this is HCASs, is manifest from amino acids, a creatine in muscle meats subject to temperatures above 302. Now you say, well, that's not that hot. Well, I can tell you something. That's like average heat in the average oven. And you know, all of you are really busy today. So when you're doing ungodly things and unhealthy things and insane things like eating the muscles of an animal, I don't care what the animal is. I know some of you say, well, a fish is not a, yeah, fish has muscle. A chicken, chicken has muscle. Steak has bigger muscles. But by the way, chicken and fish probably cause more harm to you than even red meat, which is horrible. That's documented horrible. Now the documentation on the other coming in. This is going to actually reduce your entire system's DNA, and the formation will now turn on the cancer gene and turn it off, as my good friend Dr. Campbell showed us from 45, 50 years ago. He was turning on genes by giving you animal-based foods and turning them off within seconds by getting rid of the animal-based food and replacing it with organic plant-based foods that were hopefully raw. Now we go to microwave. Microwave, I'll tell you a really good story. Back in the early 60s, I was dating a girl. We were on a double date. And we stopped at my girlfriend's best friend's house, and the mom was all excited. She wanted to bring us into the kitchen and show what Dad, the engineer at GE, had just designed. And they installed the first one in our neighborhood in the kitchen, and it was a microwave. And I don't think I've ever been the same since. So it had a little tiny window, and you put an apple in that normally would take 30, 40 minutes to bake, and it was baked in 5 minutes. And our little heads were looking there. Now, the date didn't go as well as I hoped it would after that. But I can tell you, you don't want to microwave anything. We knew the day microwave came out, it was going to permanently change your genetics. And you don't want to do that. So that means not only will you suffer, but if you ever choose to have a child, they're going to suffer too. And long-term use of this, how many of you don't eat microwave? Also, they leak. There used to be these really strict rules on them. They had to be very well built. Today, you can buy them for $50, stick them in your house, they leak, go through your house. And we have many reasons that young couples, 1/3, cannot have children. And this is one of the many reasons. Cell phones in the pocket don't help either, or in the bra. Now we get to vitamin risk. Boiling can leach up to 50% of vitamin C and vitamin B. They're being generous because my good friend, Dr. David Williams, who's the world's leading authority in this, says almost everything is gone. So these people are typical egghead scientists, and they look at, can they actually find the vitamin C and vitamin B? And they can find it. Does it mean it's active? No. So just because the corpses of vitamin C and vitamin A or B are there, doesn't mean that they're active, proactive in the human cell. As you'll learn in my latest book, Quantum Human, needs an electromagnetic charge in the food so it relates to the cell and interacts and digests it, and it becomes part of your anatomy. So we don't want to kill anything in food. And by the way, they didn't even look at the medicine, which is the most important. The phytochemicals, the phenols, all the things that prevent and reverse disease and prevent premature aging are gone, finito. Minerals leached in cook water. Now, I can tell you that this is really a big problem because about 85% of the guests I check with a deep dive test we do here for nutritional deficiencies and then repletions. What do we do? What foods do we give? Do we give living food, organic supplementation to you? Have mineral deficiencies. Because why? It's not in the soil anymore. People choose not to eat food that would have it in it. And then on top of it, even if they do choose foods that have minerals in it, they don't have adequate amount because they're not grown on good soil. Now, to further insult the entire human body, we cook the ones with too little minerals and they're lacking it. So we don't want to do that. And the other thing I will repeat once again, which I hope the science community wakes up and knows what really is going on in cutting edge science, progressive science today, not old school science that they may have learned 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, that, by the way, just because the mineral may be found in some very minute or small amount doesn't mean it's going to go into the cell and help to build your cells and create electromagnetic charge and activate the meridians, the electrical system through the body, and all of that is powerfully important. It's got to be raw. It's got to be raw. You ever hear that song? Leukocytosis. That was the first guy on the block way back in 1933, Rishkinikov. This is a 2021 study, repeats the inflammatory factor. He showed back then, 1933, that if you cook a food, a plant-based organic food, by the way, they had nothing else to test but plant-based organic foods. They weren't spraying food with pesticide, fungicide, herbicide, genetic modification, and CRISPR at that point, which kills you to begin with. They were all organic food. Your body actually identifies it as a foreign and bad guy. And so it comes after it, just like it would a virus, a bacteria, mold, yeast, a cancer, etc. And you don't want your body to be coming after your immune system, your white blood cells, your leukocytes, your soldiers to be coming after cooked food. You want them to be protecting you from all the above mentioned disorders that all of us have in our body. I have viruses in my body, very minimally. Why? Because I have a strong immune system. Every one of us produce about 1% of cancer cells every day. But why we get cancer or don't is our immune system prevents it. So it's all about immunity. You don't want to use immunity on getting rid of cooked food. You want to use it on keeping your lifespan long, healthy, happy, and sexy, most important. Now we have high heat versus raw meals. This is a 2021 study about 2.5 years ago. And what they showed in this study is participants consuming fried or roasted protein. Boy, that was one of my favorites. And today you can actually drive up, you're pumping your gas and getting your dinner, you can actually get pork rind there. That's the epitome of what we're talking about now. At least 5 times per week display a 70% higher post-meal leukocytosis count, meaning now you've taken almost 1/5 of your immune system and destroyed it because you're eating something that you ought not to be eating to begin with. Now we go long-term implications. Now this is the punchline. So why do we get all of these diseases? Why do we age? Well, what happens is when you do the wrong thing, your body creates inflammation. Now let's correct the holistic doctors who, yes, they're kind and loving and knowledgeable, but they don't really speak in a way you understand. They say inflammation creates disease. Wrong. Bad choices, bad living creates inflammation, which is a symptomology of disease. And when you have long-term cooked food consumption, which 98.99% of you have, there's only about a little bit over 1% of us that eat the majority or all of our food raw, you are going to get inflammation. The more cooked food that you eat, the more cooked it is and the ways you cook it, the more inflammation you have. And this will make you sick, not because we think so, because we know so. Hey, we're talking science here, real science, but 2025 science, not 1892 science. And so you don't want inflammation. This triggers every disease known to man and makes your brain go south, makes you look like you've gone south in the sun for too long in your life. Stay away from that stuff. So now we're going to answer questions on any subject as long as it has to do with romance. All right, so how does the elimination of cooked food impact digestion? Well, this is the ironic thing. You go to the average doc who doesn't know much about nutrition. They have a really big education in allopathic medicine, which makes them handicapped. And they try to be nutrition guys because they've read the Reader's Digest or the latest hit book that came out. And I've watched the trend over my 55 years of experience. Whatever is the latest hip thing, isn't that? Now we're in the, primal period again. And we were in the Atkins period. And we were in the South Beach diet period. And then we were the paleo. And then we were in the ketogenic period. As soon as people's attention spans get small and the results are not there, the only lifestyle that gives results is Hippocrates lifestyle. That's why we've been around and flourishing and growing for 70 years. And what we know is that your digestion can only work if you have raw food. Now, why? Well, Edmund Hell, the world's leading authority on enzymes and digestion, said this to us a long time ago, the middle of the 20th century. He said that in food that is raw and plant-based, you have half the enzymes necessary for digestion. That means 50%. You don't have raw food, you don't have that. So now your poor body's already at a deficit, and it has to try to break down food that doesn't have the ability to help it. So we don't digest raw food. We digest the enzymes in raw food. Do you follow me? And there are no enzymes, you don't digest the food. So be very cautious thinking that cooked food feels good, so it's digesting. Cooked food feels good because it's not digesting. And your body's not prepared to digest real food because you have never eaten real food in your life. I'm struggling with my rosacea for a long time. I'm 45, vegan, gluten-free. And what we do here, we have a whole department that has technology, laser technology, that reverses rosacea. We also make sure that particular type of allergens, depending upon the individual, so it's not specific, it is specific, it's not general, I should say, are taken out of the diet that would react in your specific body and your hormones. That's what rosacea is. And that can be corrected. I've seen it in hundreds and hundreds of cases. So now we go on to having bladder cancer. My B12 test is 1200. I do take the B12 every day. So a lot of misinformed doctors and researchers think that B12 is going to make your cancer worse. That's wrong. Chemical supplements, including chemical B12, majority are chemicals, always make every disease worse. So we never tell you. The book you should read on that is Supplements Exposed. Never take a chemical supplement because they're chemicals. That's why they're called chemical supplements. They're called natural on the front because they can use the word natural freely without being challenged about that. But you need a raw, organic, food-based supplement that, by the way, hasn't been processed in any way. And that's what's going to make the body stronger, healthier, the neurological system, which works along with the immune system in the conquest of cancer and any other disease. My daughter, 10 years old, a vegan. She is struggling with nasal polyps for a long time. Could you help? Sure. Nasal polyps are generally growths that are happening because the body is having a reaction to something. And it's usually histamines. Histamines are good things. Your body requires them. They sort of turn it on and protect the body as mucoids do, mucus. But you've got to understand if there's an overindulgence of this, if too much is coming out in the body tries to protect itself, so the polyps are there. So my strong advice is that you've got to find a progressive doctor who will do laser treatment on that, kill the root system of it, and maintain a healthy vegan diet. I would say that 70% of people I know on vegan diets are on junk food diets. If you're on the Hippocrates diet, you should not see a return of that. With a clear juice, I pain with pure endometriosis. Yeah, this is something, endometriosis is a hormonal problem also. It's actually little disruptions within a woman's female area. And this is something we deal with hormones here, our electromagnetic energy, our energy medicine department. And when you're on a raw diet, we see this waning. People come in here, and usually by the second or third week of their program, they are actually seeing this pain reverse. We use technologies to ease the pain at the beginning for them. A small condo, but I have hydroponic garden. Do I need to add minerals? If you'd like. If you're not taking a lot of foods like sea vegetables and blue-green algae and green algae, you may want to make sure, and you should consider those, by the way, that you put something like Ocean One, which is 96 of the 120 elements that are in minerals that we know, elements. And if you put that into the soak water of the seeds, that will help you add more minerals to it. Well, most fake meats you should know are fake. And so now let me tell you something that you wouldn't expect. I wouldn't eat these, nor do we suggest it for any of the people that I've worked with or counseled over decades, but I'm happy they're there. Sometimes people need to take baby steps before they get on the solid ground. So some of these are genetically modified. They have so much heated animal fat, or not animal fat, fats that taste like animal fat in it, that they're very damaging to the arterial areas, capillaries of the body, and add to strokes and heart attacks and diabetes. But again, is it much better than animal food? Yes. So I don't say what a lot of these make-believe experts tell you, that animal foods would be better than fake meat. No, that's not true. Animal foods are notorious. We know how bad they are. We know how they destroy your health and longevity, and there's no change on that story. Whiten teeth. Sure. The best way to whiten your teeth is make sure you're using water pick every day and go to a company that we helped to design their products 30 years ago, the largest herbal company in history, Biobotanical. All the great health stores in this country, Canada, and around the world have biobotanical products. And they have something called PerioScript that you use after you do water picking, and then Perio Paste when you're using that. But water picking is paramount. I can tell you there's night and day difference between brushing the teeth and water picking it. And then putting that on, the way it was designed, along with a dentist colleague and friend of ours, with Frank, who founded Biobotanical, was he went down to South America. He had a team of scientists that found what the indigenous tribes were using to keep white and healthy teeth and gums for thousands of years, seemingly. And they found these herbs, brought it back, put it in there, and they are actually in active forms. So this will keep the plaque and the whitening, plaque out and whitening strong. Well, let me tell you, tinnitus is a big problem. I happen to have tinnitus. You may not know this, but I worked my way through school and I continue to play rock drums. I was trained as a jazz drummer, and needless to say, in the 60s, I have walls of amplifiers behind me. We had three-piece bands with bass players and lead guitars, and I literally had walls of Vox amplifiers behind me. So tinnitus is not an easy one. We've just recently found that some people, not all, and don't think I'm suggesting this is going to work, took ivermectin in the paste form, put it in their ear. One of our people here who worked with us on the campus, within 1 month, got rid of it. Another person took peptides and got rid of it. Didn't even take the peptides for the same reason, got rid of it. This is an emerging field, and the first scientist that figures out how to reverse tinnitus is going to be a very big success. So the mast cell activation of histamine tolerance is to get the T cells tamed. So the T cells are the general of the immune system. And if the general is a little nutty, if it's like, Napoleon on steroids, that's what is happening with mast cell activation. And mast cell activation can eat you up. As a matter of fact, during the pandemic, that was really what was happening with cytokines. They were attacking the body, and that's what long COVID really is. And so we've got to get the intelligence back into the brain of the general, who now directs the rest of the immune system to back off this. So the raw diet is the underlying effect, but we also use a lot of technologies. Enzymes, as an example. Systemic enzymes are very important in this process. We also have to look at the individual's body, as we do here, and we find what nutrients or what herbs may go along with it. In some rare cases, homeopathic medicine may go along. This is something that we can work and have worked with a lot.
Over here. Hi, Brian. What is your opinion on protein shakes that are branched chain amino acids?
Well, number one, somebody's asking about protein shakes. I'm not adverse to them, providing they're not part of the 60% that are cooked and say they're raw. We investigated a number of years ago, providing they have the good ingredients, the right ingredients in them. We make the world's top. It's an A++ one. It's called Life Give Protein Shake. And I relied heavily on the protein we got out of shiitake mushrooms. So it also activates the immune system, which is what you keep hearing me talk about the immune system, because it's everything when it comes to your well-being, longevity, health, and reversal of disorders. And so with that said, the chain amino acids, meaning that they've been individually brought down to levels that your body's cells can actually look at them, identify with them, and embrace them. And so that's good, but you've got to watch, because a lot of these chain amino acids, the majority are chemicals made in laboratories, and they'll say vegan on it. You can say on a supplement vegan if it's a chemical, providing it doesn't have what? Milk, eggs, or animal food of any type in it. Autism, this is something we work with extensively. You may want to get online, look it up. We did 4 incredible programs. One of them, we brought in families that reversed autism here in the program. Moms testifying, and some of the children were on film too. We brought some of the experts in. My favorite of all now is a friend and a colleague out of MIT, Dr. Seneff, and you have to look her up. This is something that we know has to do with 2 factors: chemicals that have attacked the brain in some way, that's chemicals and heavy metals, and also allergens. And once we get people down to the basics, very simple ways of living, we see relief. I never remember one case out of the hundreds we've worked with here on the campus that we didn't see relief with. Now, I'm not going to say everyone completely reversed it, although there's been hundreds that have. Yes, they can get improvement from it. So brain function, you may or may not know that our medical directors, one of the 40 doctors in the world who's working and has succeeded on reversing memory loss and Alzheimer's disease. And so we created a supplement out of a study that was done at Stanford some 20 years ago called Conscious Brain. So among the many supplements I took today, that's one I take, Life Give Conscious Brain. Another one is turkey tail. That sort of came into my privy about 10 years ago. I take several of those every day. But more important than the supplements and eating a healthy diet and eliminating sugar, I'll repeat that. If you don't want your brain to function well, eat sugar. Drink alcohol, which is liquid sugar. That has to go. And if you don't get rid of that, I don't care what supplement you take or how many millions of dollars you spend, you're not going to get better, because it eats away at the brain just like it does at teeth. Believe me, the brain is easier to eat up than the teeth. They're hard tissue. And what we also know is that you can use technology like luminosity and the many others that stretch and do calisthenics and gymnastics with the brain. So if you spend 10 minutes a day on these computer programs, they actually get you to break the patterns of dementia, Alzheimer's, et cetera. Now, obviously, you can't have a deep Alzheimer's person doing this. It has to be somebody who's in the early to moderate stages of it. So cooked carbohydrates do break down to sugars. That somebody just asked that question. And so that's why you see a lot of chubby people who eat breads and potato, et cetera. And my colleague, who I really loved and hated at the same time, Dr. Atkins, knew that if you pull those out of the diet, people temporarily, and I'll repeat it, temporarily would lose weight. And why? Because there's no difference between a potato and white sugar as far as your body's concerned. It only takes 20, 30 minutes to become like white sugar or bread. And so bottom line is he substituted with a killer animal-based food, and the people got fatter later, as Harvard showed us. And by the way, it failed completely. So what we say is carbohydrates are absolutely necessary, but not the ones you and I grew up eating. The cooked carbohydrates are sugar creators, false energy. It's like amphetamines keep you awake and give you false energy. They're not going to give you real food. The Hippocrates diet in great part is carbohydrates, the highest protein diet in the world and cleanest, pure, unadulterated carbohydrates that don't give you false energy, give you elongated and consistent energy. And that's what you want. Today I started my day at 5 o'clock. I'll end it tonight interviewing 8 people at 9:30 tonight. I won't miss a beat, and I'm not bragging. I'm telling you how you should be living and how you should be feeling, and certainly at my age. Quantum nutrition is that we go well beyond the vitamins and the minerals and all that. We look at what they are, and what they really are is frequencies. So every single nutrient is actually at the base of frequency, and then they come up and they manifest into matter. So as this universe we know and the multiple universes were created, it was all out of frequencies that eventually the vibration got lower and became everything that you and I see, touch, feel, taste, and understand. Matter, like what I'm sitting here with my hands on top of now. And the fact is, underneath this, believe it or not, underneath every single thing you see, there's electromagnetic charge. And so We are more interested in, that's why we test every guest when they walk in the door for their electromagnetic frequency and charge than we are anything else. Because if that is not working, if that's dim, and it's not functioning at the ratio and the rate that it ought to, we can never allow the rest of the anatomy, the cells, the organs, the bones to function the way it should. So we correct the electromagnetic by giving electromagnetic food called raw living food, not raw food picked in California 4 weeks ago, but food that's alive and growing at the time you bite into it. And we bring them into our energy medicine department to charge every single one of their cells and get them back onto the pace they should. Modern medicine completely misses this. Holistic doctors completely miss this. And it's going to take some time for those people to catch up with really where we are today. Bone broth is the biggest joke. I think coral calcium and bone broth were the two biggest frauds I've ever seen in the supplement industry. They take it out of sick chickens' bones most of the time, which is a carcinogen and adds to cardiovascular disease. And anyone that would tell you to take that knows nothing from nothing, has just read the latest pop culture data on it or information. It was probably made up by the company or the institute that was paid by the bone broth industry to do that bogus research. 18-year-old son, badly influenced online, carnivore diet. Yeah, it's a shame because they show these, guys who look really muscular and girls who look really fit, and all at once they're telling you that we did this on this. Let's go back and visit those people 5-10 years down the road. So I know what happens. They show up here at Hippocrates if they're lucky, and these people are killing themselves. They are sick. And if you starve yourself, you become emaciated and you can see your muscles. But starvation, because you cannot digest anything with an animal-based food. So you know that your body is not prepared. Your gastrointestinal tract, your enzymatic is not prepared to eat an animal-based food. So starvation pops muscles, but kills you at the same point. So I don't know what to tell you because your kids want to be on their own and learn on their own. Thank God our kids grew up here on the campus and watch people coming back to life their entire youth. And so they haven't strayed. GERD, yes, it will. And GERD is because your body is revolting against the nonsense and junk you put in there. Now, we have to go very slow with GERD. We don't go to the table and eat the way that I would. Sometimes we have to blend things. We have to use enzymes. We have to use probiotics. We have to actually have fasting periods with people. And then we slowly but surely make the body comfortable, the gastrointestinal tract comfortable, so it believes and starts to trust you're not going to assault it anymore with craziness and nonsense. And yeah, that's very much something we see reversed often. Lyme's disease is a pretty scary thing. And, doctors are just starting to talk about it. They used to tell everyone they needed psychiatric care. Something that we've been helping people reverse for 35 years, but it's got to be a combination of lifestyle and the IV of silver. Out of all the things I've ever seen, and believe me, I've seen hundreds and hundreds of people reverse it. Without the silver IV, will greatly improve you, but you're not going to get rid of it. So the silver, unlike antibiotics that never ultimately work, that's what the holistic docs give you. And by the way, I think that's one thing that should be shut down immediately because it weakens the overall immune system, destroys the gastrointestinal tract, perverts the brain completely. 90% of the brain comes from healthy bacteria. We now know from a study out of Karolinska that 4 years to 8 years after people took normal mainstream antibiotics, they were still missing 50 of the families, the essential fundamental families you need for a good immune system and good psychology in there. So you don't want to do that. With the silver kills without killing you and killing your gastrointestinal tract. You have to find a very progressive, open-minded, and science-based doctor, not a money-based doctor. So they're talking about the liver. Could they have a problem coming from their liver? What are a cause of high platelets? Well, platelets are really interesting. Platelets are one of the few times that scientists gave something the right name. It's the plate that the rest of your cell coagulates around or becomes part of it. And so decreased platelets, what we always do is give papaya leaf extract. Hawaiian Pharma is the best company we found in glycerin. And we also cannot say off the top of our head without our medical team looking at your records and your blood tests and everything else that it is the liver. Liver could be implicated with it, but spleen could be implicated with it. Spleen even more so than the liver. And many times we have platelet disorders because the entire army of immune system cells are a little confused. And so we've got to work in a large orchestrated way rather than just what are we going to do with platelets? How are we going to remedy it? How are we going to make the body produce adequate and correct amount of platelets? Because you don't want too thick either. You get too thick platelets, it ends up being a stroke. So here's somebody with heavy metals and lead and mercury. This is a very common thing. Nickel and all of these, cadmium, thallium. What could be causing all of this? Well, number one cause of it is when people are eating fungicide, pesticide, or herbicide food. You may or may not know all of those have heavy metals to bond them to the plant, to the leaf of the plant. Number two, it could be in your water. And unless you're using distillation, something that really cleans the water, not these filters, even expensive filters don't take that out a lot of the times. You could be reinstituting or re-engaging that inside of the body. So we use copious amounts, large amounts of chlorella, life-give chlorella, and also saunas. But you've got to be really dedicated to going to the sauna. Just yesterday, we had a conversation with a guest here that is loaded with it, and we did a very extensive test. Most of these tests out there don't really work well. But now the latest, like Vibrant Lab, really pins it. How much do you have? Why do you have it? Even where do you have it in the body? We stuck her in a sauna for 2 hours a day, one in the morning, one in the evening. And this woman is about 170 pounds. So we actually gave her 80 to 100 little chlorella tablets a day. She spreads it out through the day. And a lot of the docs are going to try to sell you chelation therapy, which is a preservative from food that works half as well and costs a lot. You could buy a sauna by the time you're done with that. And it's a chemical. So emotional intelligence, I can't say enough good about. It was one of the great books I've ever read on psychology in my life. And we may remember President Clinton. Now, you can't say President Clinton wasn't bright. You may not have liked his politics. You may have. He literally was a Rhodes Scholar. But look at what his emotional intelligence were. Here's the President of the United States doing what he did in the Oval Office. And I'm not here to condemn that. I'm not a prude. But it was a little silly. If you had emotional intelligence, you wouldn't do such a thing. You'd move out of the Oval Office at least if you did that. And so I think that there's many books, and I don't want to promote my book, but if you're really interested in advanced thinking, my latest book talks extensively about that, Quantum Human. I think if you talk to me about other books that have been influential in my life, Homo sapiens, not Homo sapiens, but Sapiens, this Israeli genius is unbelievable. He recalculated the history of man and he got it right. Because I read little bits and pieces all over on science. He pretty much got it right. And I would say, going way back, Ken Keyes, who wrote One Flew Over the Cuckoo Nest and Sometimes a Great Notion, he also wrote a lot of health books. I used to send people, when they had real emotional disorders, out to his place when he was alive on the Oregon. Well, number one, you should protect any baby. This is a 4-month-old baby. Should they wear sunscreen? Yes, but it has to be a clean sunscreen. Most sunscreens amplify the sun and give you cancer. Let me repeat that. Many of them you get in the natural health store can give you more cancer. This PBA, which is in it, is a known carcinogen. So you want to get something that's food-based, and you want something that's there. But more beneficial would be to use umbrellas, to put hats on the baby. One of the mistakes I have to admit we made with our youngest daughter, when she was about that age, I recall that we had her in the sun for an hour and she had severe burns on her. Babies are not able to do what you and I do. And what we do know, unless that baby, as ours did, grew up eating a healthy diet, later in life that leads to skin cancers. And so you want to really, really be a diligent parent. And it's not only Florida, it's Spain, it's Mexico, it's Central and South America. It's the summertime in the north. Sometimes I'm up north in the summer. It's hotter than it is here. The hottest days in Florida. So it's not just Florida, just you get more sun here longer. Well, number one, if you're not eating a raw diet, you're not nutritionally supporting your body with osteoporosis. So anything that is cooked is not going to give you the mineral that you need. Now, we would also add BioSil, which is the best supplement on the market for silica, biotin, just get a pure one that's out there like we distribute here at Hippocrates, and also strontium. It's a mineral you need small amounts of that bond the calcium and magnesium. But if you're not doing weightlifting, you'll never get well. So this one I've worked with 22,000, mostly women, a few men, that had osteoporosis. Nobody gets well without weightlifting. And if you don't know how to do that, get yourself a trainer, ideally a physical therapist who has really been trained in this, or a 4-year graduate from a school as an exercise physiologist who really knows how to isolate the parts of your body that are degraded. Now, most likely that you ate a lot of animal-based foods when you were young. There's 3 acids in all animal foods. I don't care if it's milk or if it's cheese or if it's chicken or if it's fish that erode not only the bone. We have photographs in one of the presentations I do with the average person pre-osteo and osteopenia that have pits in their bones. And when you get osteoporosis, you have a lot of pits in your bones and they're getting weakened. And so what you need to do is to rebuild the bones by resistant exercise. If you don't do that, you're not going to get well. Now, everyone's going to sell you something and tell you some magic story, but I'm going to tell you the truth. Weightlifting, 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 eating the Hippocrates diet, then supplementation. That's how it has to go. Well, you don't cure inflammation, you don't feed inflammation. So the way you feed inflammation is the usual suspects, but some of the unusual suspects. So if you had organic bread, it creates inflammation. You have sugar. I don't care if it's fruit sugar. I don't care if it's honey. I don't care if it's maple syrup. It's really, 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 really acid and creates inflammation. Alcohol creates inflammation. Meats, obviously, dairy food create inflammation. Breads create inflammation. All of the cakes and candies and donuts I used to eat make inflammation. So you cut those out and inflammation could go down. Now, what I'll do later today is I get into a cryo unit that's 170 below Fahrenheit, and I'll stay there 3 minutes and 15 seconds. And then I get out and go into a red light. So how do I speed up the healing? Here on the campus, we have outdoor cold plunges, and our partner has a cold plunge bath. And so these are ways that you'll speed up the recovery. But unless you stop the source of it, you're in trouble. Low sperm count can come up, and it's usually a testosterone problem. Of course, if you go to the labs that want to make thousands, tens of thousands of dollars, and they're going to give you synthetics. I would find a doctor who's really steeped and really understands what she or he's doing as a bioidentical hormone doctor. By the way, you can get a weekend diploma on that one. So you want to say, you've done this for 10, 20, 30 years. 30 years would be great, 20 years better, 10 years, okay. But get somebody who knows what she or he's doing and work with them. And then on top of that whole thing, remember, the more sex you have, we write about this in one of my many books called 7 Ways to Lifelong Sexual Vitality, the sperm count comes up. I personally, since I was a young age of 50, take ginseng every day. So my testosterone has remained really high, even though I'm in my mid-70s at this point. Lipoma is a blood tumor, and so we would use a technology we have here called Comra and Tesla, not the car. And what these do is target directly to the blood area and start to help the body dispense it back to where it should be, not through the veins and growing into a tumor. Thank God these are not cancers. They won't kill you, but if you have too much of this, it could actually press on the organ systems, which we've had 500-600 people over the years come here with that problem. So it's more urgent. Lupus is something we've worked with thousands of times here. And of course, they tell you it's an autoimmune disease and they tell you what to eat and all of this other stuff. Grains are hard to digest unless you sprout them. Everything's hard to digest unless. So we put you on plants rather than cooked grains. That's number one. And so the entire Hippocrates program supports the body's ability to reverse lupus. And of course, when people come and we look at your individual case, then we will specifically, our medical team, say, here are the other treatments and therapies and IVs and hyperbaric chambers and all of the things we offer that you would take. But a very famous tennis player came here with that, was told she was going to die, and healed herself on the Hippocrates lifestyle. So small bowel obstruction, thank goodness, most of the time it can be corrected if it's not advanced with diet and lifestyle. Also, you have to find a good osteopathic doctor or very, very, very advanced chiropractic doctor, because they can help to manipulate. But if you don't change your diet, you don't change your lifestyle, you're not taking things like raw aloe vera juice and fenugreek sprout juice and these things that lubricate and relax and hydrate the area. So it actually relaxes a bit, so that now the bowel obstruction may be going. Now, if it's very advanced, thank God for modern medicine. If you have a bowel obstruction that's filled and you're becoming septic because of it, modern medicine's not all bad, and that's one of the areas they shine. Now, be very cautious of where you're getting IVs. Remember, well, you don't remember because you don't know. I was a keynote speaker at the International IV Conference just last September in Boston. And when I went into the room, I was railing and screaming to the room filled with doctors and practitioners about how most of them, if not 98% of them, 97% of them, are injecting genetically modified corn into the veins of their patients, of their clients. And I was stunned to realize that they were stunned at what I said. They didn't know it. Now, the only thing I can say negative about them after that, other than I made a mistake and I apologize for yelling like that, is that they should have done a deeper dive. Just because it says natural on the package doesn't mean it's good always. And so there is cassava. So here on this campus, when we IV, it's cassava. There are many things that they can't make a mistake with. NAD, they can't make a mistake with. Amino acids, generally, unless they're synthesized, as they may be in a protein powder, they don't usually make a mistake with. And so you've got to really be selective. Don't think just because it's given, it's a good thing. I can't tell you how many endless cases I saw people got worse taking the wrong chemical IVs, which almost all of the vitamin C is. Well, it's not a trend. Omega-3 is something that we first talked about, the omega-6 actually in 1928. 1981 is omega-3. So what happens when it becomes a trend, people are selling more of it, and when they talk more about it, you hear more about it. Now, what we do know is that a study that I just read yesterday that was done a month ago, less than 30 days ago, to be honest, showed that we increase lifespan by 5 months by taking omega-3. Now, what type of omega-3? So a not so knowledgeable person who goes along with what they're being told would tell you fish oil. Well, we know fish oil causes cancer and cardiovascular disease, heart attacks and strokes. I'll repeat it so you don't miss what I say. And you're going to say, well, doctor, the alternative doctor, the integrative doctor, well, they're wrong. They're wrong. They better read studies before they precipitate these things, like the IVs, genetically modified corn. We know they cause cancer. You think they do. Why? Because when people come here for our cancer programs, we take them off that and we start to see that in and of itself makes a dramatic difference. But what are omega-3s? They all come from plants. So where the fish gets it from is from algae, a plant. Where you can get it from is from algae or from eating all plants. Lettuce has omega-3 in it. Common raw vegetables have it in it. Once you cook the vegetable, it becomes a carcinogen, meaning cancer causer, and adds to heart problems. Why? Because now the molecular structure has been burst, destroyed, it becomes adherent and sticks in your bodies and your arteries and doesn't feed the cell. Just like if you blow something up, you can't put all of the pieces together. And that's what cooking does. Burst the molecules. That's why it's soft and limp at that point. So omega-3 is really good, gives you energy. The only two energy sources the body is programmed to eat after thousands, hundreds and thousands of years of evolution as Homo sapiens is glucose from plants, green plants ideally, not from a lot of fruit that has too much glucose. And number two, essential fatty acids. A weed that's costs nothing called purslane is a top land-based one. Algae, I don't care which algae it is, it could be dulse, arami, haziki, wakame, kelp, are loaded with algae. Blue-green algae has the exact essential fat the brain's made of. So one of the many reasons I take 5 types of algae a day, blue-green, green, phytoplankton, sea algae, is because of the omega. And my brain hasn't slipped yet. Yes, the more evidence we have at this point, our expert here, our medical director, Dr. Josh Hellman, who's Harvard, MIT, and Cambridge, now shows the latest data on dementia, memory loss, and Alzheimer's is almost always it's implicated with some heavy metal. Now, to say it's the only thing would be wrong, but it's certainly a compartmental part of it, if not in great part what it is. So it does affect mobility, but mobility is affected in a lot of different ways. And we now know, for instance, MS, which we've been yelling about for years, and now they have proof of it. They did a massive study, is Epstein-Barr virus that attacks the brain. That story is done. We know what that is now. So we've got to watch. We can't say everything's heavy metal, everything's toxins. We've got to refine it and not just be, blatantly ignorant in holism. We've got to look at what's available, what's best, what diagnostic. You don't say they're bad and we're good. When we talk here at Hippocrates of advanced progressive medicine, we use the best of every modality of medicine. We're for you, not against anything. We're against the things that harm, and there's plenty of those. Believe me, I rail about them every single day and suggest for people strongly not to do them. But on the other hand, we've got to look in a large way to help you in a big way. So till the next time, have a lot of fun, enjoy yourself, and make life something that you really love to have continue.